Okay, we're back with more about chapter 1 from your text. We've got a few more points that I want to touch on before we end this in this chapter. So I'll go through those fairly quickly again. Get through some notes here. So give me just a moment. Okay, in the previous video we talked about the difference between a small business and an entrepreneurial business. A small business is one, I'll give you a further definition of a small business in comparison to an entrepreneurial business. A small business is one that's not likely to experience much growth. And it may be for a number of reasons. It may, some people will say businesses that are inherited by a child, where the growth has already occurred in the prior generation. They're just taking it, just continuing doing what was done before. Some would say a person who can be a small business owner if they just are really just looking to provide a basic income for their family, and this is just a different source of income compared to working at the local factory or working at a retail place or some other type of business working for someone else. It's just a different way of going about getting that income, but they're not really doing anything creative, different. I heard one consultant say that many small business owners want the convenience of, they're just doing it for convenience purposes more than anything else. They want to be able to, close the shop at noon and go fishing if they so desire, or shut down at 12 o'clock on Fridays and take off early for the weekend. Whereas if they were working for someone else, probably couldn't do that as easily. So those types of businesses, hopefully you kind of get the idea of where I'm going with this. Those types of businesses, some would say, are more of a small business owner run instead of an entrepreneur owner run business. That being said, there are a number of examples, and hopefully you'll be able to think of some more and post some on the discussion board site. Examples of what are traditionally thought of as a small business owner type of business. And I'll give a few here: a fishing shop, a hardware store, and a used car lot. Fishing shop. There might be one on Main Street there where you live. There's one in the town where I live. There's a fishing store. They sell rods, lures, line, sinkers, nets. The same things you can expect to get at any place, and including Walmart. Walmart has a section that sells those things too. So that is just a traditional old type of business. Can provide a good income for the business owner, but there's not really anything entrepreneurial to it. Now think about Bass Pro Shops. Bass Pro Shops took that concept and just juiced it up. They sell boats. They sell a variety of a whole host of equipment that can only that can't be found at your mom and pop fishing store. They've got great lighting, great displays. They may have an area where you can test out the equipment. So they've taken an old concept and injected entrepreneurial aspects such that it makes it attractive to the consumer. And therefore they have taken a lot of business away, not only from the mom and pop shops, but also from the Walmarts of the world. So that is a way that you can take an old concept and turn it into something entrepreneurial. The same is true. The second example that I mentioned was a hardware store. Lowe's, Home Depot, Lowe's especially. It's interesting to read the story of how Lowe's got started. Lowe's was your your standard corner hardware store in an old downtown area, I think in Wilkesboro, North Carolina. But the owner back in the the early part of the century in the 1900s, had a vision for a chain of hardware stores, and I think the board at the time thought he was crazy, and he ended up buying out the company and started to put those plans in place, and as a result, over the years, grew and grew and grew, and into what is Lowe's Corporation now today. One of, I don't know if they're larger than Home Depot or vice versa, but one of the largest hardware supply stores in the country is, and they've done it very entrepreneurially, and so there's no reason to think why other businesses can't be done the same way. Used car lot, they I hate using cliches and old sayings, but I will here. They are a dime a dozen. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of used car lots in the state of Alabama. What makes one different from the other? Not a whole lot. If you know someone personally that works at one or owns one, then you may have you may feel a little bit better about going to that one versus the next one. But honestly, they all carry about the same types of cars, or you can find they can get one for you at an auction, and about what you're going to pay for it. Okay. CarMax, however, took the idea of a used car lot and just juiced it up. I've not ever bought a car from a CarMax. I know people that have, and they say the experience is so much different than what you get from your standard old used car lot. Go on their site and find what they offer, but you'll be able to see that they've taken an old tired idea and made it entrepreneurial. And again, I've said this with all three of these examples, there's no reason to think why the same can't be done with many other types of businesses, be it a hair salon or an auto mechanic place, service place, so many others. So we'll end on that. There's a book. It's not required reading for this course, but I would encourage you to get this at some point. It's called The E-Myth Revisited. It's by Michael Gerber. It is a great. He tells it in story format as a consultant to a small business who was struggling with how she should put her business together, and the result of it was that. His recommendation, well, may not should get into it for copyright reasons, but I would encourage you to get that book, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, and it'll really help the reader understand the importance of building the structure of a business and not just opening the doors. Talking about entrepreneurship as a funny aside, several years ago, many of you probably have heard about some of the gaffes of President George W. Bush, things that he said, that mistaken using words in the wrong context and whatnot, and so he kind of got famous for that. And with that, some people just made some things up about him. He was said to have made the statement, "The problem with the French is that they don't have a word for entrepreneur." The funny part of that is that the word entrepreneur is a French word, so it's a little jab at our former President Bush, but it's not true, but it is funny, and brought even more attention to entrepreneurship several years back. Okay, we talked about success rates of small business. There's another entity, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We talked earlier about the Small Business Administration cites a couple of different rates of success depending on the number of employees, whether it's an owner only or if it's a business with employees. The Bureau of Labor Statistics cites that after 4 years, that only 44% of businesses are still around, and after 5 years, which I think was one of the measures by the Small Business Administration, only 38% of businesses, 38.3% of businesses are still around. So again, it may be the way that they view the closing of a business, the death of a business. But suffice it to say that the statistics are not in your favor for starting a business. And so, again, commend you for going through this course. Will certainly help you. What are some reasons why new ventures fail? There are several that I've seen over the years, and a few that I want to point out here. One is the first is lack of market research. A lot of times business owners don't really understand who they are marketing to. And I know that sounds strange, but until you define it and you define what that market segment is looking for, then it truly is tough to know how you should design your business. And it's amazing how many business owners don't do that until 3, 4, 5 years down the road, sometimes never. They think they know, but they've not put it down on paper, not defined it. Another reason for business failure is nepotism. What is nepotism? You can look up the definition, but essentially it means giving jobs to family members at its core. And sometimes just so they can have an income. You feel like you owe your brother a favor, and so you'll give his kid a job. Is that the best thing for your business? Probably not. If you're just rolling in the money, fine. But it is not advantageous for a business that wants to grow, and certainly not for those that are in their early stages of development. The third reason for new venture failure is one-person management. What I mean there is not one-person ownership, one-person management, one person who's making all the decisions, not bringing in other people, not for the purposes of them taking over, but to generate new ideas. You can't know it all. Unfortunately, when you get started, you're going to have to do it all in a lot of cases. But as you grow, if you want to continue growing, you really need to take advantage of other people's knowledge. As I mentioned earlier, one possibility would be for you to go to work for someone else as their number 2 person. The same is true here. You need to be willing to bring in other individuals who have expertise in areas that you will have to admit that you don't have expertise in, whether it's accounting, whether it's law, whether it's outsourcing those activities, or if it's bringing them in house, or someone that just knows about a host of different areas of business. But one person management teams, one person management businesses are not the way to go long term. And the fourth area where I've seen a lot of businesses fail is in absentee management. And what does that mean? That's where a person sets up a business and they say, I just want to set it up and let somebody else run it. Well, that's great. However, if you're not there, until you have really established the procedures, it's best to be on site, at least on a somewhat regular basis, checking the books, making sure that ordering is getting done properly. There's so many minute details of a business that really need to be overseen by a business owner, especially in the early days of a business. And when someone just thinks that they can set it up, hire a quote unquote honest person to run it, and they'll be fine. They're really just fooling themselves. So that's what absentee management is. Okay, a couple of small myths about small business. One about small business owners. Many people think that small business owners are rich. While many have made fortunes in business ownership, many small business owners make only marginally more than their industry counterparts. And so if you think you would be going into small business ownership for that, with that goal in mind, I would encourage you to take a critical look at it. Be honest with yourself. Is this really a possibility? And team up with someone who's going to ask those critical questions and really challenge you to think. That's Not always the case. We talked about failure of businesses. Let's see here. Interesting quote here in this, for what it's worth, and then we'll end this clip. This is from a magazine called The Economist in 1998, near the end of the internet boom. If you start a company in London or Paris and go bust, you have just ruined your future. But do it in Silicon Valley, and you have simply completed your entrepreneurial training. I thought that was very interesting, talking about the views of failure in European countries versus the United States. So obviously we're of the mindset here that if you fail, no big deal, try again. That's just training. It's just training. So okay, into this clip.